All right, let's talk about something that's super personal, something that a lot of us go through, but maybe don't talk about enough: religious doubt. It can feel really isolating when it happens, but today we're going to walk through a path, not just out of doubt, but actually through it, to find a faith that's even stronger on the other side. This quote really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Doubt almost never crashes through your door like a big, loud announcement. No, it's way quieter than that. It's more like a whisper, a little question that pops into your head, a nagging feeling that something just doesn't quite add up. It always starts small. And that, right there, is the big question, isn't it? What do you actually do when those quiet questions show up? Do you try to ignore them? Do you start to panic? How you answer this one question, well, that's what decides if doubt becomes a brick wall or a doorway to something deeper. So, for our first step, we need to understand what doubt really is at its core. Let's look at that initial whisper, not as some kind of threat, but as the real starting point for what can be a pretty profound journey. It's so easy to feel this wave of guilt or shame when you start having questions, but that's a huge mistake. Seriously, having questions doesn't make you a bad believer. If anything, it means you're actually taking your faith seriously. You're not just, passively going along with things. You're engaging with your beliefs on a much deeper level. And this is the absolute key. The doubt itself isn't the problem. The real danger, the real fork in the road, is what you do next. Where you take those questions, that's what makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so if the questions themselves aren't the enemy, what is? Well, if those quiet whispers are ignored or mishandled, they can definitely grow into something much bigger and more harmful. So let's break down the 4 ways that doubt can turn dangerous. So here's when you need to be careful. First, when doubt is just left unresolved. You just let it sit there and fester, that can really eat away at your conviction. Second, when it's fed by unreliable sources, which, let's be honest, is all over the internet. That just makes things worse. Third, when you keep it a secret because you're afraid or ashamed. Doubt loves to grow in the dark. And finally, when it gets all tangled up with unprocessed emotions like anger or sadness, those feelings can start to feel like facts about your faith when they're really not. And this distinction right here, it's a game changer. What feels on the surface like this massive belief problem, like your whole faith is crumbling, is often rooted in something way more specific. It might just be a simple misunderstanding, or a gap in your knowledge, or maybe even an emotional wound that's coloring how you see everything. So, if pushing our doubts away is a bad idea, what's the alternative? This brings us to the real turning point in this whole process. The solution isn't passive at all, it's active, and it's all about one thing: knowledge. Okay, so before we talk about the solution, let's just be crystal clear on what not to do. Our first instinct is often just to shove the doubt down, right? Just suppress it, pretend it's not there, and hope it goes away. But let's be real, that almost never works. The real path forward is to actually turn towards the doubt, not away from it. The goal isn't to just silence the question, it's to find the answer. The solution is to actively, purposefully seek clarity. But clarity can't just come from anywhere. So what do we even mean by authentic knowledge? Look, we're not talking about fiery social media debates or random YouTube videos. We are talking about deep understanding that comes from qualified scholars, people who live and breathe the primary text, who get the context, and who have the wisdom to help with both the questions in your head and the feelings in your heart. All right, we've talked about the what and the why. Now let's get into the how. This part is all about action. These are the practical, concrete steps you can take to move from that feeling of confusion to a place of clarity. So here's your 5-step roadmap. First, just be honest with yourself that the doubt is there. Stop fighting it. Second, and this one is so crucial, go to the right people and the right sources. Third, take some time to untangle your emotions from the actual intellectual questions. Fourth, sincerely ask God for guidance. And finally, number 5, be patient with yourself. This stuff takes time. Let's just zoom in on that second step because it is so, so important today. This slide makes the contrast totally clear. On one side, you've got the chaos of the internet, all the clickbait, the emotional arguments, the people who sound confident but have no real training. And on the other side, you have the actual path to clarity: qualified teachers, real books, structured learning. One just feels more confusion, the other actually resolves it. And this question gets right to the heart of step 3. It's about being really honest with yourself. Ask yourself,
Am I questioning this idea because I truly don't get it intellectually? Or am I feeling distant from my faith because of something that happened to me, some pain that I haven't really worked through? Both are totally valid, but they need very different approaches to heal.
So, what happens when you actually do this, when you follow these steps and walk this path? What's on the other side of this difficult but totally necessary journey? Well, this brings us to the best part, moving from doubt to a faith that's deeper and more resilient than ever before. This is the incredible shift that happens. First, all that fog of confusion turns into clarity. Vague worries get replaced with solid answers. Second, your faith becomes grounded in real understanding, not just feelings. And because of that, your confidence gets stronger. You're not so easily shaken anymore. And finally, and this might be the most important part, you learn how to think, not just what to think. You gain the tools to handle future questions on your own. I love this quote because it just brings everything full circle. It completely reframes doubt. It's not a failure, it's an invitation. An invitation to go deeper than you have before, to be more honest with yourself, and to build a foundation that is solid because you put in the work to build it with real knowledge. And this is our final, most important takeaway. A faith that's just based on emotion, or one you just inherited, well, that can be pretty fragile. But a faith that has been tested, that has been questioned, and that is built on a rock-solid foundation of real knowledge and sincere understanding, that kind of faith is not easily shaken. So the real question isn't whether you have doubts, it's what kind of foundation you're willing to build